Okay, well, it looks like everyone has joined that will. So welcome to the University of Calgary's webinar for economics graduate programs. So first of all, thank you for attending this informational webinar. It's really great to, I guess not meet you, but virtually connect with you this year and share some information about how our programs are structured, what life is like in Calgary and at the university, and some of the details around the application process itself. I'm also going to be happy to share with you what our specific department has to offer, who some of our faculty are, highlight some of our successful alumni, and more. So hopefully it's a valuable webinar for you and provides you with all of the information that you need to make an informed choice about your graduate programs for fall of next year. Now, before proceeding, I want to introduce and let you know that we're joined by Merritt Penny, the graduate program administrator in the department. Many of you might have exchanged emails already, so hello, Merritt.
Hello, everybody. Yes, it's nice to be here.
And so as we proceed through the webinar, do feel free to ask questions. And if you are unfamiliar with the Zoom webinar setup, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a menu of options. One of them is Q&A. You can click on there and submit any questions you have along the way. And myself or Merritt will be able to provide an answer to you as we go through. And of course, if questions come up and you don't want to ask here during the webinar, feel free to email us and I'll provide those specific addresses at the end of the talk. All right. So to kick things off, who am I? I'm the guy talking here on the other end of the webinar, but my name is Trevor Toome. I'm an economics professor here in the department and the graduate program director. I may have actually emailed with some of you already, so now you can put a face to that name. So my research interest, in addition to being the graduate program director, is in the areas of international trade and macroeconomics, and increasingly now public finance and fiscal federalism issues. Certainly as we're seeing COVID-19 disrupt economic activity and finances around the world, it's presenting a particular challenge to countries like Canada, but others around the world, the United States, Germany, that also have, a more decentralized governance structure. And so I tend to publish in a wide variety of journals, but more recently, the American Economic Review, American Economic Journal Macro, Canadian Journal of Economics, Journal of Monetary Economics. So this gives you a sense of myself and who I am and what I like to work on and teach. But in addition to me, the department head, Rob Oxoby, and I already introduced Merritt. Now, Rob is a fabulous professor, mentor, and leader in the department. So someone who I think you would really enjoy having as the head of the department during your graduate program. And as you can tell from his photo, this is his actual official photo in the university, that he has got a great sense of humor as well. So I will introduce you to more of our alumni and faculty as the talk goes on, but myself, Rob, and Merritt will be your primary points of contact between now and your application and hopefully admission next fall. Now, the programs that we offer here at the University of Calgary are really focused on just two main degrees. First, the Master of Arts. So this is a one-year program that really does allow you to explore in much richer depth than an undergraduate degree many frontier issues in the field of economics. And then we also offer a Doctor of Philosophy, so a Ph.D. in economics that allows you to spend many years not just consuming knowledge as a student, but producing it on your own and contributing to the discipline overall. Now, I'm going to give you details behind these degrees, but before doing that, I kind of want to first start by taking a step back and asking an important big picture question, and that is, why study economics, right? Some of you might be here at the webinar just kind of thinking about economics, and you might also be thinking about business or engineering or public policy degrees elsewhere. So I want to talk a little bit about why you should, personally, why I think studying economics is an incredibly valuable route for you to take in your graduate degrees. So first, economics is a very broad discipline. almost everything is economics. It's more a set of tools rather than a fixed set of questions. It teaches us how to make well-informed decisions and to weigh competing trade-offs and constraints that we face in making those decisions. And we regularly face these kind of choices about how to use and allocate scarce resources to achieve our goals. And economists study how those choices are made, both individually, uh, in markets, like as consumers, but also non-monetary decisions as well. All aspects of human behavior at some point or another is studied by an economist somewhere. So it's a very broad discipline. And we like to focus here in this department on learning to use statistics and read data and analysis critically and carefully, but really across a broad range of topics. Now, in addition, there is a very practical value to an economics degree, and that is economists are in high demand. Just looking at the data, I don't need to convince you of this, but certainly a quick Google search will do as much, that economists have a wide variety of job opportunities in academia, of course, where I am currently employed, also in government as policy analysts, in private companies as market analysts. Many large companies are also hiring economists to not just deploy their knowledge of economics, but to deploy their skills at using and working with data. So our analytic capability means that employment opportunities are quite broad. It's also fun. I personally think it is a lot of fun to not just work through, but also to think about. It really gives you a framework and a scaffolding to layer onto difficult issues that, of course, we are facing now and will be for some time. But even in normal times, there are so many interesting economic issues that pop up in the news. And a degree in economics can really help you appreciate some of the nuances and the trade-offs and the challenges involved. Now, why the University of Calgary? So once you've decided, yes, economics is fun and valuable, the University of Calgary itself is a really excellent place for you to consider pursuing graduate programming. So first, it is one of the better economics departments in Canada. So certainly Canada's, relative to, of course, the United States, a smaller country. So we have a smaller number of economics departments overall. And University of Toronto and University of British Columbia are really quite excellent universities as well. But University of Calgary, Simon Fraser, McMaster, McGill, Queen's, we are kind of arrayed in this very collegial environment, let's say, between economics departments in the country. We all know each other, contribute to each other's work, and so we're very well connected in that sense. And then internally, the collegiality is really strong among faculty and between faculty and graduate students as well. Obviously, the working remotely is making things a little bit differently, but once we're back on campus in person, hopefully next year, there's really a doors open policy where graduate students are on the same floor or the same floors. We occupy 2 in our building as faculty. And when we're there feeling free to drop by and talk with and work with faculty is something that we strive towards on a regular basis. We also offer very highly competitive financial aid packages that I will talk in more detail about later. And as I will also just turn to now, we've had a very strong record in terms of job outcomes for our recent graduates. And so I want to highlight, I guess, some of our recent alumni to give you a sense of where our PhD graduates have ended up, where some of our MA graduates have ended up, and we do have more information available online. So one, actually a tenured professor at Queen's University, the School of Business, Olena Ivus, who studies international trade and intellectual property rights. Very well published, graduated from our program, I believe 10 years ago, now with a very successful academic career under her belt at Queen's as a faculty member there. And also more recently, Jevan Cherniwchan, who studies international trade and environmental economics, also very well published, tenured at the University of Alberta. And actually, I think it's not spoiling a surprise, but He'll be moving to Carleton as a Canada Research Chair if he hasn't yet. Hopefully a January 1 can happen for him, but of course he hasn't physically, anyway, it doesn't matter. Successful graduate in international trade in environmental economics, and then also environmental economics and another Canada Research Chair is Juan at the University of Waterloo. Also one of our graduates from, I think, roughly 10 years ago. I may be getting my dates wrong, but it gives you a sense of scale. And so our PhD program has graduated and regularly continues to graduate a number of top individuals who have had very successful academic careers at top departments elsewhere. At the master's level, Brent Cohn works at Twitter now as a senior data scientist, right? So it is again the understanding of the functioning of markets, but I think more importantly, the high level of analytical and big data skills that we try to provide at the master's level. Christine Runge, senior consultant at an electricity advisory organization, who worked very closely with one of our experts, or a number of our experts, in environmental economics and electricity markets and energy markets in particular. So bringing together knowledge of not just economics, but also knowledge of policy and the broader regulatory environment is something that we offer in particular in energy and resource economics issues at the University of Calgary. So overall, I certainly can't go through the many hundreds of alumni that we have graduated in the past number of years, but just to give you a broader sense of where they are currently working. So I highlighted some of the academic positions of recent PhD graduates, but others working at University of San Francisco recently, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Melbourne, Truman University, Georgia Tech, and so on. There's a number in addition to that list, and then private sector employment opportunities for our MA and PhD students are also regularly quite strong. Next, who are our faculty? So of course, one of the more important decisions of where to pursue your graduate studies really comes down to who you will be working and learning with, and that is our faculty. So there are a number of them, and so I would encourage you to visit our website to learn more about their research and teaching activities and their latest papers and publication records and so on. But I'll highlight a number who are very actively involved in many aspects of graduate teaching and supervision that you would no doubt learn a lot from were you to come to the University of Calgary. So first, Professor Scott Taylor, full professor here, actually former Canada Research Chair, but was for a number of years with an expertise in international economics and environmental economics, publishing in the top journals in the field, in particular the American Economic Review, Quarterly Journal of Economics, and is currently the president of the Canadian Economics Association. So really prominent member of our department, certainly, but also the global economics community here, who works with a lot of our graduate students and regularly teaches within the graduate program. Lucija Muehlenbachs, an associate professor of economics, her focus is on energy economics and environmental economics, also publishing in top journals in the field, multiple award winner, and very active, I should say, in supervising activities for graduate students. Very generous with her time, and so working with her in particular on energy and environmental issues is a great opportunity available to you at the University of Calgary. Arvind Magesan, actually my predecessor, the former graduate program director here, with expertise now increasingly in bigger data questions, machine learning, structural econometrics in particular, with a topical research focus area on industrial organization and political economy issues. Also publishing in top journals, Restud, I think has a revision right now in another top 5 journal, AEJ Policy, European Economic Review. So really active researcher, also very generous with his time, and increasingly, as I mentioned, focused on these bigger data empirical questions like machine learning. Alex Whalley, also an associate professor of economics here at the University of Calgary, and the lab economist at the Creative Destruction Lab. So this is a very interesting initiative that really bridges business school academics and economists with private sector corporations and entrepreneurs thinking about new ideas. And they come to what is called these creative destruction lab events, pitch their ideas, and they have a good back and forth with other entrepreneurs, but also other experts such as Alex, who can really help not just research and publish, but also someone who really connects their work with real world practical realities that business people confront every day. Also, top publications, of course, and his specialties primarily in labor markets, urban economics, and innovation policy. Now, some of our newer faculty, I'll highlight two of our more recent hires, Alex Jacobson and Eric Mbeka, both assistant professors here. Alex in economic theory and Eric in econometrics and industrial organization, both off to an incredibly productive research career starting here at the University of Calgary with publications in AER and econometrica them both actually. So even our younger faculty, very active research agendas, very generous with their time, very much, I think, enjoying contributing to supervision and teaching in both our MA and PhD graduate programs here at the university. And then finally, I will end on Rob, who we met earlier as the department head. His expertise is actually in behavioral economics and experimental economics. So the University of Calgary is unique in that we do have not just expertise in experimental and behavioral economics, but also a lab where we conduct experiments here on campus. And so that's a really unique opportunity for those with interests in those areas to work not just with Rob, but others, and have the facilities available to implement experimental economics research. Great. So I think that gives you a broad sense of who we are as faculty and who some of our selected graduates have been. What about the university as a whole and the city of Calgary itself? So it is, of course, a big decision, especially for PhD students who will spend multiple years at the institution of their choice. And so I do want to take at least a moment to highlight some of the benefits of the University of Calgary and Calgary as a city. So first, the university is one of the top universities worldwide with about 30,000 students and a lot of individual programs. And currently in the city, this number should probably be updated this year, but over 160,000 alumni spread throughout the world. So it is a very active environment to be a graduate student in. Lots of potential connections with lots of other areas and active programs throughout campus, with a very strong reputation both in Canada and around the world. Now, Calgary itself. Calgary, where is it? Well, just a little map there of Canada. The province of Alberta is in the western interior of Canada, and Calgary, as you can see, there's kind of on the southern end of the province. It's the fourth largest Canadian province, both by area and by population. So we're roughly about 12% of Canada's population. And what distinguishes Alberta from other parts of the country is the immense natural resources and the natural environment that surrounds the city. So it is next door to some of the oldest and certainly some of the most beautiful natural parks in the country. So Banff National Park and Jasper, as well as many natural areas in the neighboring province of British Columbia. So the ability for hiking and skiing, of course, in between active research on your own work is one of the real benefits of studying and personally speaking, working at the University of Calgary. Calgary overall, it is the energy capital of Canada. So the headquarters presence in Calgary is second only to Toronto. So a lot of industry demand for graduates of the University of Calgary, and not just in oil and gas. There are a number of headquarters here in the city that go beyond oil and gas. I'm thinking of Shaw's, one of our major telecommunications firms, Canadian Pacific Rail, a big logistics shipping company here, also headquartered in Calgary. So it's a vibrant city, it's a young city, it's a growing city, and The Economist magazine's most recent ranking of the most livable cities in the world places Calgary fifth. So it is a great place to consider living for a year as a master's student or multiple years as a PhD. Now, details of our program. So after that kind of higher level pitch, let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty details around the two graduate programs here, what they involved, what the requirements are, what our application process looks like, and so on. And I guess just to start things off, I will talk about the cohort of students that tends to be admitted and the type of student that we tend to look for when reviewing applications. So I'll note that, of course, many do have undergraduate degrees in economics, but many do not. Engineering, business, even music, journalism, mathematics, there's a wide variety of backgrounds that that we look to. I mean, I myself have an undergraduate degree in finance rather than in economics. So if your background is not something where you have an undergraduate degree in economics itself, that's okay. As I mentioned, economics is a very broad field. And so we look to specific courses that you may have taken just to ensure that you have enough math training, for example, to be able to excel in a graduate degree in economics, but it's not a prerequisite that you have an economics specific degree, just that you're well prepared to excel in graduate programs in economics. It's also a very diverse cohort with students from both from Calgary, from across Canada, and many from around the world. Now, the program within the department is also pretty integrated into a lot of active research activities in addition to the regular courses that we have here on campus. So we have 2 seminars usually. On Fridays, we'll have external visitors come in presenting their research. These are folks that we will fly in from other universities around Canada, the United States, sometimes elsewhere around the world to present their research. And we always have those external speakers connected to our graduate students at lunch. So a group of 3 or 4 graduate students, which rotates around the department depending on research interests and who the external individual is. We'll try to make these connections where you can enjoy a lunch with the external visitors. So both a free lunch, which is great, can't argue with that, but also a great chance to network with researchers at the frontier of the field from all over the world. And then we also have an internal seminar where it's usually on Wednesdays, where we typically have faculty and graduate student present on their own ongoing research. More broadly, we have a distinguished lecture series in March that brings in top economists regularly from all around the world, just to give you a sense of who some of the more recent ones are. And in addition to our own activities, there's also the School of Public Policy here on campus, which brings in distinguished speakers on a regular basis. Actually, in 2 weeks, Esther Duflo, the 2019 Economics Nobel Prize winner, will be giving a talk here, not physically, but virtually, given the situation. So we very much value and prioritize your ability as a graduate student to learn from not just us, but others from around the world. Okay, now the real nitty-gritty. So turning to the master's program. So what does that look like? So we have a course-based master's program here, which involves taking core courses in macroeconomics, microeconomics, and econometrics. This is very standard. This is what you would find in any master's program in Canada. And in addition to those core areas, you will then enroll in 4 elective courses. And so we offer a variety of elective courses that you can pick from. So whatever 4 you wish. And then once you're through your courses, there's a summer research project component where you take your knowledge from your classes and you apply them to a research idea of your very own to hopefully contribute to the literature. To visualize that structure, I find the following table may help. So it is a 12-month program. It begins in late August in a 2-week, what we call math camp. This is also common in graduate programs throughout Canada at the master's level. We're just to ensure that everyone's starting from a relatively similar position. We'll do a crash course in mathematics and statistics before actual classes begin in early September. Now, the timing of when specific courses are offered can change, but this year we have our core courses offered in the fall, and the 4 elective courses are then taken in the winter. Throughout the year, we have what are called research methods classes as well. Now, these are not regular lecture-based courses with assignments and exams. These are meant to help ease you into the process of conducting research, how to read the literature, how to come up with research ideas, how to work through a research idea, how to write them, how to present them. So it's very much focused on the practical skills of being a researcher, which is ultimately what graduate school is meant to get you involved in. And then during the summer months, starting in May, typically after you're done your exams in the winter semester, you will undertake an independent research project under the supervision typically of a faculty. It depends on what your specific area of interest is, but everyone will be provided with a supervisor through that summer research project. It's actually quite rewarding to take the knowledge that you gain in the courses and actually try to answer a question that we don't yet know the answer to, but we want to. And so historically, some of the second year papers have been quite strong. Some have been published in academic journals as well. The PhD program, the second graduate program that we have, is a much more involved, much more research intensive, much longer degree, of course. Doctorate degrees, of course, are. So ours is generally a 5 or 6 year program. Of course, that varies across students. Some manage to complete sooner, some take longer, but that is average as well across Canada. In the first year, we also have a structure that is very similar to PhD programs in economics in other departments in Canada, where you focus initially on the core areas of micro, macro, and econometrics. And that's it. So your first year is focused on those core areas. So you'll have a micro class in the fall, and then another micro class in the winter, macro class in the fall, another macro in the winter, and same for metrics. Then after your first year, there are qualifying examinations, which are comprehensive and cover each of these 3 core areas of the field. So there will be an exam on microeconomics, an exam on macro. And these are not exams connected to specific courses. These are meant to ensure and to test that you have the knowledge in these core areas that every economist should know. And I'll talk about those in, I guess, more detail in a bit, but maybe just spoiling the surprise. This is common in PhD programs throughout North America, Europe, Australia, and it is required to continue in the PhD program. So these exams, you get 2 chances to write them, first in May, June, timing can vary, and then again later on in August, and they cover each of those 3 areas. After you proceed through those core micro, macro, and metrics courses, then we proceed to the elective courses at the PhD level. And that occupies your second year, where you take field classes, in particular in areas that you wish to specialize in as a researcher. And then that will feed into a second year paper, where this is hopefully the first chapter of your dissertation, and hopefully the first publication that you will that you will get as an academic researcher. So that second year paper, taken very seriously, takes some time, as of course all research papers do, and it's generally completed, or we aim to complete it in the fall of your third year, and that really marks that milestone that transitions you fully from a consumer to a producer of knowledge, where you transition from your coursework to your thesis work, and you become a full and independent researcher contributing to the stock of knowledge in economics. Now, through that research process, you're not alone. You are supported actively by a principal supervisor and other committee members. So often you will have one main supervisor. Sometimes some have two co-supervisors to help them through. But it's your committee and your supervisor in particular that will be a sounding board for your research work, that will help you stay on track to ensure that your research is contributing meaningfully and importantly to your area of expertise, and will help you through the process in terms of candidacy exams, the thesis examination itself. They'll write letters as you move into thinking about job market outcomes later on. And yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about supervisors. So for both programs, whether an MA or a PhD, we extend quite competitive financial supports to many of the graduate students in our program. The typical MA student this year received about $18,000. There is variation across individuals, just depending on circumstances or other awards that people receive. But this funding is there, and it is, of course, in support of not just the tuition costs associated with your degree, but offsetting the costs of living while you're completing your degree. And the typical PhD student receives between 26 and 30, and the variation in there depends on individual circumstances. So there's a wide variety of other scholarships in addition to the base support that we provide that are made available through the University of Calgary and through other granting agencies as well, both in Canada and abroad. So the China Scholarship Council in particular is an important source of financial aid as well. Now, for a more complete list, in Canada, we have the Social Science and Humanities Research Council, and there is funding for both masters and for PhD. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't yet, to look at the SSHRC website to see what are the opportunities available there. Internally, we have what's called the Graduate Awards Competition that is an ongoing and regular process where you apply for funding through a wide variety of sources internal to the university. But in addition to that, the kind of core base financial support that we offer to our graduate students takes the form of either teaching or research assistant opportunities. So teaching assistant opportunities are, a really excellent way to supplement your graduate activities in your research and your courses by engaging in teaching, either running tutorials and actually directly helping undergraduate students learn economics material, but also providing other supports to faculty who are instructing at the undergraduate level. Now, for perspective, this is about 200 hours per semester, but that's the kind of contract number of hours. I'd say that realistically, roughly, you can expect to work about half that number, so 10 to 12 hours per week. And that's about $9,000 for the semester as a whole. And so a TA position in both the fall and in the winter is where that $18,000 in support tends to come from for the majority of our master's student, and a good chunk of the financial support for our PhD students. Now, research assistant opportunities are also widely available in the department, but this takes a more ad hoc structure, if you will. So faculty are always looking for support of graduate students to help in executing their research agenda. And so therefore meeting faculty, showing, putting a good foot forward in courses are typically how those connections are made. And then as the graduate program director, I try to connect graduate students interested in doing RA support with faculty who are looking for RA support. And there is a lot available there. Now I'll turn in the latter portion of the webinar here to some application details. So first, at the master's degree level, just to give you a sense of the requirements that we look to for admission to that program, is a minimum GPA of about 3.0 on a 4-point scale. Now, different universities have different ways of reporting GPA. And so this is whatever is equivalent to 3 out of 4 points is what we look to as the minimum requirement there. And we require that you do have a 4-year undergraduate degree from a recognized institution. Now, occasionally, as I mentioned earlier, you may not have an economics degree itself, and that's okay. I myself did not, and we look to more than just the label of the degree itself. We look to background preparation. What are the courses that you've done? And in addition to academic training, if it's been some time since your undergraduate degree, we also look to private sector experience. That can often be very valuable in terms of indicating your expertise and your passion for pursuing graduate training in economics. For a PhD, the minimum is also a 3 out of 4, also having a degree, and typically a master's degree also from a recognized institution. Now I say typically because sometimes you may very well be fully qualified for entry into a PhD program without a master's degree. And so there are exceptions for exceptionally well qualified candidates in that case. And I mention that here because many top US schools don't even offer a master's degree in economics. And so having an undergraduate degree from one of these top institutions with strong reference letters that I'll mention in just a second can allow you direct entry into a PhD. Now, verbally, I should have included this in the slides, so we're catching my mistakes here. As a master's student, you also have the option of taking PhD courses if you can demonstrate that it's something that you'll be able to succeed in. And we would talk about that individually with you. But as a master's student, completing PhD courses can in principle allow you to complete your PhD sooner if you continue here as a PhD student. Now, I got my degree from the University of Toronto, and this is what I did as a master's student there. So I joined U of T and I did the micro and the macro PhD courses. And at the end, as a master's student, I also wrote the micro and the macro comprehensive examinations as a master's student, and then continued on as a PhD student and had an easier first year, I promise you. So I focused on the econometrics courses there, and that option exists here as well. Whether it's suitable for your individual circumstance is something that, of course, we would be able to talk about. But this year we had one MA student write a comprehensive examination, and then continuing on as a PhD would mean that that's one less thing to do. So the two degrees are not watertight compartments from each other. Now, what do we look for in an application? Well, we're going to look for a couple things. First, and I put this in bold, reference letters. I'll turn to this in the next slide in a moment around how you should think about selecting reference letter writers and what we look for specifically, but they should be from people who know your work well and can assess your preparation for graduate school. Okay? And letters of reference are extremely important. It's hard for me to overstate the value of these letters. In addition to those letters, your transcript. Obviously, that's important too. Performance in relevant past courses is a very strong signal of your ability to excel in a graduate program, not because it's just revealing your own work ethic and abilities and your knowledge, but it's revealing your preparation for sometimes difficult graduate courses here. Also, what's required is the application fee. Not much more to say about that. Turning to international students, this, given how unique of a year it is and how much COVID-19 has disrupted different countries in different ways, Sometimes it's not feasible for you to actually undertake a language proficiency exam or the graduate record examination. So we can be flexible on those, recognizing that there's a lot of extenuating circumstances out there. Now, even in normal times, there can be provisions or exceptions, if you will, for the language proficiency requirements. If you have a degree from an English language institution, we just completely waive the requirement for demonstrating language proficiency there. So connecting with Merit would be your first step. Give her email here, and we can explore your individual circumstance together. All right. Now, because of the importance of letters of reference, let me note that, or a couple things that we look for here. So having 3 is ideal, and they ideally should be from faculty that themselves have a good professional and research reputation. This is particularly important for those thinking about PhD program. We look in the letters for indications that you're not just an exceptional student, but you're also likely to be an exceptional researcher. So if you've worked with a faculty member in the past, maybe as a master's student, as a TA or as an RA, or maybe there was a research component to an undergraduate course that you took, or some honors programs potentially even have you complete an undergraduate thesis. Having the professor that worked with you in those roles is very valuable. They can speak to your work ethic, your creativity, your interest in economics and whatever field you have as what you want to pursue in your own research. That's very valuable. Okay. And keep in mind that letters, they should add to your application, not just duplicate information that is found elsewhere. So a letter of reference from an instructor in a class that you received an A+ in, but otherwise the instructor doesn't know you much more than you got an A+ in the class, that might actually not be the most valuable letter, because they might not be able to speak to your abilities to succeed in a graduate program. So if the letter is just going to say, yep, they were in my class and they did exceptionally well, and that's it, then that doesn't add much, because we can see that you received the A+ on your transcript. So think carefully about how your letters and your letter writers will complement other dimensions of your application and add to it. Okay. Focus on issues like passion and work ethic and creativity is very important. In addition, writing skills. Okay, so maybe there were essays in previous undergraduate courses that you did well in. Having letter writers speak to writing ability is also very important. It is an underappreciated component of being a successful academic generally, but also a successful graduate student. Writing matters. So I guess I didn't mention it specifically, but there are opportunities for you to demonstrate yourself in your application through your statement of interest, not just your own passion, but also your writing abilities. So take the portions of the application where you're writing and communicating to us very seriously, because it's an important signal that we look to. Okay. Also, this last bullet point, it's important. You want your letter writer to have a chance to reflect on what they would write, how they would compose the letter. So be sure to ask them well in advance of the deadline that applies. And I'll give you the specific deadlines in a moment. But basically, ask them right around now, if you haven't asked them yet, whether they'd be willing to supply a letter for you. Now, the GRE, this is something that in general is what we require for international applicants. We recognize that it just might not be possible. And so it's not really a requirement this year in a strict sense, although I do strongly encourage you to supply your GRE score. If you don't, it doesn't work against you at all. So we're being quite flexible this year, but any information that you can provide to bolster the strength of your application to the program is something that I would encourage you to do. And so the relevant codes for our department and the school are there at the bottom. So do make a note of that. And if it's possible for you to write a GRE, I would encourage it. I would encourage it even for Canadian students, where we never require it, even outside of COVID disruptions, but it can be an important signal that adds value to your application. All right, now how to apply? Well, January 5th, that's the deadline for PhD applicants. And January 15th, so 10 days later, is the deadline for MA applicants. So mark your calendars, mark those dates, and the link is there. Although, of course, you can find the link on our website, where I will also refer you for more information. So econ.ucalgary.ca/graduate, or feel free to reach out to us directly at econgrad@ucalgary.ca. So I think I will end it here. I really do, or not end it. I will end the portion of the webinar where I do all the talking here. And I'll thank you for your interest in our program. And I hope that I see many of you next fall. But I see there's been some Q&A going on already. So that's great. But now's a good chance to raise any other issues if you had them.
All right, thank you, Dr. Toom. I think as we wait for Q&As to come in, maybe I'll start the session as well. Is it a requirement to have a supervisor prior to applying to your thesis-based programs?
Excellent question. So excellent a question, I'm going to have to build that into next year's webinar. So no, economics is actually unique among some disciplines in that even for our PhD program, we do not have supervisors pre-assigned prior to joining the program. For master's students, ours is a course-based program. And for the summer research project, we do have assigned faculty members to support you through your summer work. And they act as your supervisor as a master's student. I should note that you're not restricted to those particular faculty if there's a natural match with another. For PhD students, the first 2 years being dominated by coursework means that the need for a supervisor is not really there until you start to transition into your second year paper. So formally speaking, I would be your supervisor when you first join the program. So the graduate program director would play that role, would support you through trying to decide which courses to enroll in, maybe help provide advice on grant applications, things like that. But that connection between you and a formal supervisor for your dissertation is not done until the second or third year. And I guess also while we wait, I'm scrolling through the Q&A here. So just in case you can't see, I'll highlight a couple good questions. So I mentioned the GRE. Joshua Wells asked if Jeffrey Church is still a professor, and he absolutely is, and he is a great member of the department, really passionate supporter of graduate students, and just exceptionally rich knowledge of regulatory issues, environmental, economics, industrial organization issues. So yep, still here. And what else? Yeah, I think the others pretty straightforward, or merit.
Pretty straightforward, yeah. Mostly administrative things, but there is one here that is for you. Can you please speak to any job placement opportunities that may exist for MA students?
Great question. So we tend to host a number of recruiting events through the year. Actually, so it was just a week or so ago, the Parliamentary Budget Office was here for a recruiting event, not on campus, but last year they were here on campus. So we tend to house the federal government, Bank of Canada, local governments, the Parliamentary Budget Officer. We've also done kind of industry nights where we have people from private sector connecting as well. And so that's the extent to which we formally engage in job market opportunities for MA students, really just hosting recruiting events from a wide variety of sources. Oh, and then I should say for PhD the job market there is quite different, depending on whether the route that you want to pursue is academic or not. But for those doing an academic job market route at the end of a PhD, there's a fairly structured process that all academic economics departments basically on earth go through every year. And so we would help you through that. But that would not depend on where you get your PhD from. You'll go through the same job market process.
Dr. Toom, if I can also add, the Faculty of Graduate Studies does offer internship opportunities to graduate students. So if you are in a PhD or a master's program with the Faculty of Economics, internships are something, if you can fit them into your schedule with your studies, that you can look at as well.
Excellent, thank you. Great, so actually, yeah, Benham in the chat has a great question about career services in the university to prepare PhD candidates for the job markets. That's a great question because it is something that requires skills that are not necessarily taught in courses. Being a successful PhD job candidate involves not just writing great papers and demonstrating teaching excellence that you would do, to build up your CV through your time here, but also it's very much related to the clarity with which you communicate your research ideas in presentations, and academic jobs often require campus visits where you present your research. Teaching institutions often, or us sometimes as well, will have you do a little guest lecture in one of our undergraduate classes. So there's a wide variety of skills training programs offered here for graduate students through the broader university in what's called My Grad Skills. So lots of opportunities to work on writing skills, presentations, networking, how to write your resume in different ways, how to build a professional website, I remember was one of the offerings in the past. So there's a lot of active opportunities on campus. And then to practice presenting research, I think one of the more exciting things that we participate in are these 3-minute theses, where that's hard, presenting your research in 3 minutes in an engaging and in an accessible way. So it's a really active and a lot of friendly competition here on campus in that program among graduate students. So there's a lot of opportunities to help enhance your ability to succeed in the job market as a PhD student here. Can I give, so Alfredo, can I give information about living expenses in Calgary near campus? So that's a great question, and one where there's going to be a lot of variation depending on what type of housing you look to. But Calgary is surrounded by a lot of residential areas and is connected to the light rail system in the city called the C train. And so that makes getting to and from campus very easy, although there are lots of residential opportunities around. I hesitate to quote a specific average rental price, though, for like a 1-bedroom. Maybe Natalie or Calvin, do you have a sense of like,
Well, yeah, so there are numerous options for students to live in on campus or in and around campus. We do have residents solely dedicated for graduate students because we understand graduate students do require a quieter space than where undergraduates would live. They're 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom studios, and they range about $900 to $1,000 Canadian a month if you're living on campus.
Okay.
If you're living outside of the campus, there are a lot of private houses that have rooms that you could rent, and they typically range anywhere between $400 to $500-600 depending on what you're sharing and how many bedrooms are in the house. So it's quite affordable to live outside of campus, as you do get a rail pass that you can commute, or a lot of students would walk or ride their bike because Calgary has the largest urban pathway, and it's great to get some exercise that way.
Great.
I
Thanks.
also see that Nick, sorry, Dr. Toom, I see that we've had one of the attendees indicate that a 1-bedroom in Calgary can range from $900 to $1,500.
Now, there is a great website that I will refer everyone to, so you can poke around to see what are the options and the range of things that exists. And that, I'll type it into the chat window. It's rentfaster.ca. Great website. Great.
There's a question about payment options for international students. I guess the students from Lebanon, where the banks have imposed certain capital control measures. Are you referring to the application fee? The payment of the application fee? Can you clarify maybe if that's what you're referring to? If so, we do take Western, what's that money transfer?
Western Union.
Western Union, yeah, exactly. And also, if you have family or friends outside of Lebanon that can pay by credit card for you, that can be an option if you do have that. But we do take Western Union if that's available in Lebanon. I'm not sure.
So I'll take this next question regarding having a BA in economics, but from a few years ago, and then additional coursework after your undergraduate degree. So that would certainly be incorporated into how the admissions committee evaluates the strength of your application package. And of course, it's going to vary depending on what courses and where and so on. But I think it would look very, it would reflect on you very favorably. So having some time pass between when your undergraduate degree was and your entry into the graduate program is not at all a point against you. And having that interest and that passion for further learning and knowledge that you demonstrate by going back to school after a few years is something that we would look favorably on. And of course, it depends on the exact courses and all of that, whether it's relevant or not. But if, at worst, it's just a completely neutral. And at best, it's good. I should say that actually one of our more successful graduate students ever, I want to say, came into the program after 15 years following their last prior degree. So they had a lot of private sector experience and then just wanted to have a career change. And so they brought a lot of deeper, richer perspective to their graduate education than is typically the case. So alumni from Africa. So we certainly have, and I guess we are in the process of improving our database of alumni on the website. So it may just be that it's not quite there. But yeah, we have had a number of graduate students, both at the MA and PhD level from Africa historically. So absolutely.
There's a question about the application fee waiver, and I think I can answer that one. So unfortunately, we are unable to waive the application fee for students. This is a university-wide policy for the undergraduate and at the graduate level as well.
And Joshua Wells asks if a BA degree in psychology would generally provide reasonable prep for MA Econ studies. So this would actually be very uniquely strong preparation if your particular interests were in things like the behavioral and experimental economics, which we offer graduate courses in, for example. So we would look to ensure that you do have, in addition to just the psychology background, also have a couple mathematics courses that would ensure that you would have the quantitative background necessary for success in an MA Econ degree. But yeah, given that one of our kind of unique strengths as a department is the behavioral and experimental lab and faculty with expertise in that area, a psychology background is actually a kind of an interesting and natural background for us. Although do mention looking for a couple of the core mathematics courses, calculus in particular, would be necessary.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask a question as we wait for others to type in. For research topic, do you suggest that students have a research topic in mind, or was that going to be assigned when they start the program, or how's that decided in your program?
Yeah, that's a great question, and will vary across students. So some do enter graduate programs in economics with a very specific research agenda in mind, but most do not. So at the master's level, typically your summer project is something that will, be based on an idea that was sparked during some of your coursework or through some of your conversation with faculty during the first 2 semesters. Then PhD students, you probably have in mind an area that or two or three that you find interesting, but you're really not sure. And the courses that you take in your first 2 years are also meant to expose you to the frontier of knowledge and reveal where those gaps are. And your research ideas will naturally percolate through that process. So if you don't have a specific research agenda in mind prior to starting a graduate degree, you're definitely not alone. It wasn't until the 3rd year of my PhD program that I really had it figured out what I was actually going to do for a thesis, and that is not uncommon. Okay, so what are these specific field courses that the U of C is offering for the MA program? So we do have our courses posted online at econ.ucalgary.ca, so you can see what we're offering this year. Now, what are we in general offering all the time that you can count on going forward? Well, it's going to be in areas where we have particular strengths. So we always offer graduate courses in international trade, in environmental, energy, and resource economics, topics in industrial organization and regulatory economics, public finance as well. And I believe those are the core areas that are always offered. And then we also offer health economics on a regular basis, one class there, behavioral and experimental economics there. Those are usually just one rather than 2 courses spread throughout the year. So let me just quickly recap those fields. So energy, environment, and resource economics is a core area in the department. International trade, another core area. Industrial organization and regulatory is a third. Public finance, and then usually the one course offering in health and behavioral. And then in addition to that, depending on faculty interests in teaching other courses, you'll see on the website that we offer other courses as well. Courses specifically answering Nathaniel's question in game theory, there's not a specific graduate game theory course itself, but this would be something that is explored within the core microeconomics sequence. So anonymous question on the specific coverage of energy economics. So that will vary depending on the faculty. So I think the number of faculty that we have with specialties within energy, environmental, and resource economics are 11 or 12 of us. So there's a lot of expertise in this area. And in graduate courses, the specific fields and topics that are covered can vary from year to year and from faculty to faculty. And that's natural in that you want your graduate programs and those elective graduate classes to really be at the frontier of knowledge. So as time goes on, as research is done and publications in journals are put out there, we adjust our teaching to keep up with the field. So Professor Olmsted, he is at the University of Alberta. So unless I'm misremembering or thinking of someone else. So he's not a faculty member here, or merit?
Yeah, that's right, Trevor. He's not a faculty member, so he'd be hired on contract basis, sessional. Yeah. So we would just need to watch the website to see if he was teaching anything in that year.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So a specific question on calculus requirements. So I did mention us looking to sufficient mathematics backgrounds prior to entry into econ graduate courses, Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. And I guess this might go by different names at different institutions, but the core areas of mathematics that focus on differential calculus and integration. So integration is typically Calculus 2. Those are what we would look to. In addition, real analysis classes are valuable, although I wouldn't say it's required. I myself only had the Calculus 1 and 2 prior to starting my graduate program. Anonymous question here with an interest in behavioral economics, but have an unrelated undergraduate degree. So that's okay. I mean, we would approach the graduate courses here not with an expectation that you have sufficient field-specific background knowledge. So we would, in those courses, provide you with the instruction, the information, the sources and readings that would be necessary to expose you to work in that field. So when we look to the courses you have in undergraduate, we're looking for a foundation. Do you have knowledge of tools and techniques that are generally used across fields and in our core courses? And less about, do you have specific training in specific fields? That's not nearly as relevant. That's what we would teach you. So question on enrolling in other courses, such as statistics courses in the Department of Statistics. So it is possible and evaluated on a case-by-case basis to take courses in other areas of the university. This would typically be where, for a specific reason, a course is providing you with knowledge of an area or technique that would be relevant for your graduate work, and we're not offering something comparable in the department. So just as an example, next semester, we will have a student who is taking 2 courses from outside the department and specifically related to financial econometrics, which we weren't offering this term. And so I'll note that it also goes beyond just taking courses in other areas of the university to courses at other comparable universities as well. So the University of Calgary is lucky to be a part of what's called the Western Dean's Agreement. And the details don't really matter so much as it provides graduate students with an opportunity to take graduate courses at other institutions, but typically not have to pay tuition at those other institutions. You'd continue to pay University of Calgary tuition fees. And so if other courses elsewhere would enhance your degree and complement what we are offering in the department, then that's absolutely something that we can talk about. One question on, is there a software preference in the department? So I'd say that typically Stata is used fairly frequently, but across courses and across faculty, there's variation. Some will look to Python and MATLAB, some will look to R and Stata. Which tool one uses in a given area depends, kind of ultimately depends on what the goal is or what the purpose of that tool is. So MATLAB would be something that is useful for solving computationally economic models. Stata, R, often used in Python also for data analysis, for example. So that's going to vary. We don't expect an underlying knowledge of any particular software package. Often courses that would have you complete assignments in a software package would ease you into it. Certainly that's how I design courses, allow for group work so you can learn from each other, and sometimes also offering tutorials on different software. So through the university, you would have access to a number of different software packages, certainly in the labs on campus. And then there are also student licenses for different programs, but of course R and Python are free. So Abdullah, great question on timing. When are the decisions made for PhD admissions? So that deadline being January 5th for PhD students, January 15th for MA students. We start to work right away. So we start combing through those applications and often have decisions made within a couple of weeks. And so I think aiming for the end of January is what we have in mind. And I should say, though, that's the first round. So often offers go out. Sometimes people have competing offers and choose to go elsewhere. And so then we may approach with a second round of offers. And so the process may start late in that month of January in terms of us making offers. But if you miss out on the first round offers, that doesn't mean that a subsequent one would not be made. So Benham asks about having an MBA background. Yeah, I guess I can't give a hard and fast rule. It does kind of depend on what other aspects of your application package and background features. I teach in the MBA program here actually at the University of Calgary, so I definitely have a lot of respect for those who go through it. Absolutely. So I guess we would have to think about it on a case-by-case basis. And if you'd like, certainly feel free to email to me directly as well. And I could give you some initial comments on your overall package. So are there courses on data analysis, and how are those tools used? So absolutely there are courses on data analysis, certainly within the econometrics. And I'd say that state data is more frequently used out of the software packages. We're thinking about next year having a machine learning kind of supplemental, not like a full coded course on Python. So that'll vary depending on the faculty teaching in these different courses, of course. So we do not have an interview or video essay for admissions. So it is all the written documentation that you provide, the examination scores that if you are choosing to provide, that you provide, and reference letters and the transcript. Well, it seems the question activity is, oh, here's one more. Is there a quota on the number of admissions? So there is not a hard and fast limit to the size of the cohort. I will say that as a practical matter, we cannot have more than 40 MA students, just because then room size becomes an issue. But the number that are within the master's program varies from one year to the next. For this year, the initial cohort size was roughly 20. And then for the PhD class, that also varies. Typically, we're aiming for a cohort of around 6 to 8. What is the usual number? Merritt, do you have that off the top of your head? I want to say something like 80 PhD and like 200 MA.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got it. So we receive each year consistently 70 to 80 PhDs and up to 160 MAs.
Okay.
Yeah. Although this year we're expecting more, it seems to me we're on track to get more. We're already a little above where we usually are at this time of year, and we still have a little time until it closes. So I expect we could get a little over 200 in total. We'll see how it all finishes off after the deadlines.
Great, thank you. So question on whether financial assistance covers tuition. So it is a payment that is larger than the tuition amount that is typically due, for sure. But what the exact amount is that's offered is going to vary across students and will depend on different circumstances, different opportunities for the student elsewhere. So what I'll note is that at the time of admissions offers in the new year, there would be an amount committed to you at that time. And that amount can change depending on what other offers you receive or other considerations that can be evaluated at the time. So I would encourage you to communicate with us any relevant information, opportunities you have elsewhere, or constraints that you face at that time.
I would also add that our international students are also offered international tuition award from the Faculty of Graduate Studies that will bring their tuition down close to what a permanent resident or Canadian student would pay as well. So there's in addition to the funding that's provided by the economics program, you also get an international tuition award if you're an international student. In addition, there are numerous scholarships that you can apply for that Dr. Tu mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And that International Student Tuition Award is new this year, correct?
Yeah, it's new this year because the funding model has, the tuition model has changed. There's no more visa differential being paid by international students. Yeah.
Right. So quick follow-up question for that, or that would be worth clarifying to the attendees. You don't apply, right? You are automatically considered as an eligible international student for that award, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the value is $3,000. It's an annual value of $3,000, and it's paid $1,000 in the fall, $1,000 in the winter, $500 in the spring, and $500 in the summer. So this goes to offset the cost of your tuition for those terms.
Great, thank you.
So it looks like the questions have slowed down. If Merritt, if you can throw your email again in the chat one last time. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can email Merritt. And then I think we have one more question here. How long is a typical class tutorial?
A typical class is an hour and 15 minutes, twice a week. For undergrad, so if you're doing a tutorial, so grad tutorials vary, kind of depends on the specific class. They're typically never more than 1 hour. And undergraduate tutorials are also never more than an hour for most of the classes that we do. So that's 50 minutes, 50 is the typical tutorial length. So as a TA, if you're involved in conducting tutorials, that's kind of how long you would be teaching.
Oh, are TAs guaranteed, or how's that assigned? Do they have to apply for that, or are you typically assigning it to your students?
No, great question. So we commit to funding at the point of offer of admission into the program. And then what goes into that funding amount that we commit to can take many forms: scholarship, RA-ships, TA-ships. So you don't need to apply for a teaching assistant position. I contact grad students through email asking people to indicate whether they're interested or not interested. But I generally presume, and for the most part, everyone generally is interested in a TA role if they're available. And there are a lot available. So generally over both semesters, we have 80 TA positions that we allocate in both the fall and the winter. So while it is not guaranteed, it is an extremely high probability that anyone interested in a TA opportunity can get one.
All right, I think that
about wraps it up.
Yeah, some great comments in the chat there for you, Dr. Toom. If you want to read that from Nathaniel.
Thanks, Nathaniel. I am passionate about economics. It's so much fun. I was not just making that up.
So thank you everybody for joining us today. Again, this session is being recorded and will be put up on our YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you want to rewatch some parts to get some clarification or review some of the professors that were introduced in the beginning of the webinar to learn more about their research topics, you can do that in a few days. And then Merritt has put in her address there if you have any follow-up questions after the webinar. We do encourage you to submit your applications as they do close in January. So thank you again, everybody, for coming in.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.